Hello and welcome to Rolling with Series. I'm Will, and with me is the person who walks with the animals, talks with the animals, and then steals their shoes,
Sarah.
And today we're looking at Dominion Menagerie. Sarah, why don't you tell us a bit about this game?
All right. Menagerie is a big expansion that introduces exiles and ways, and there are also player mats. There's actually some more things in that, but a lot of it is re-implementing other aspects that have already come up. So let's start with exiles.
So exile is an interesting way that divides your deck into a third stack. You have a player mat, and certain cards will call out to exile whichever card. Sometimes it's themselves, sometimes it's a different card. The card goes there, and it stays out of your discarded deck as long as it's there. Now, to get it back, you can gain another copy of that card, and then you can have the choice, you don't have to, of taking it off your exile. Any copies of that same name.
All copies.
All copies. Pulls them back into your discard pile. But like I said, you don't have to do that when you gain a card. You just may.
Right.
So it's another way to juggle around cards that you may not want to be in your deck, like your victory point cards. Because even though they're exiled, they're still a part of your overall deck. So at the end of the game, you'll take whatever's the exile, put it back in your deck, then count your score.
Right. So some cards will exile, like you said, other cards. So you could get rid of like copper and or the estates victory cards. But others will exile themselves, and it's because they're a powerful effect. And so you get to use it, but you don't get to use it again, well, until you buy a copy. And then you gain it and all the other copies of that card from your exile mat back to your discard pile. The downside is once you can no longer buy copies, then the exiled cards do stay there. But generally speaking, depending, you can have some pretty good life into the game to play with it.
Yeah, and since an end game condition is when 3 decks run out or the provinces run out, the game ends, it just means the game is close to ending.
Right. Right. Okay, ways are really interesting. They're another horizontal card, and you actually only use 1 per game, and it stays out. There's no buying it. There's no buying into it. It's another option. So instead of playing a card for its normal printed effect, you can choose to play it for the way. This includes reaction cards. So if you play a reaction, the trigger is still there, but the effect of that, what it triggered, you could choose to do the way instead. So it gives you more options.
Yes. It basically turns any card that you can play into a dual card.
Right.
I either play it for the card's face value or the way. And that's one of the reasons why there's only one way in any given game, because any other way you would add would mean that every card now has 1, 2, 3 abilities.
Yeah.
And it just escalates.
Or even if you picked one, it could be complicating if you need to choose. So I've talked to some people who wish there were more ways in the game, and I can understand that, especially when if you pick randomly and the way for that game is not one that you particularly like, you might never use it. But as I see, a lot of these horizontal cards are just more options, and you can utilize them as you see fit or not to use them.
Yeah.
And thematically, they're all ways of different animals, as if you are learning from those animals.
I learned from the butterflies. And then you go around like a little loon, flapping your arms, and nobody says anything because you're the monarch.
Right. Okay, so otherwise, horses, which is not a new concept, it's a non-supply pile. There's several cards in the expansion that provide horses, or you gain you horses. When you play one, you get +2 cards, +1 action, but then it's returned to its deck. So it's a temporary action card. It's just very interesting how it's used to accelerate your deck, because you get the card draw and you still get an action. So you have that possibility to still be able to play things.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling pile, but it's you getting on a horse and riding, seeing more of the landscape while you're flapping around like a butterfly.
And then you lose control of the horse and it rides away.
Right.
runs off.
But horses actually make a really easy option for like, okay, I'm not going to use the horse ability, I'm going to use the way.
Right.
And that way it doesn't get rid of the horse. It sticks around because you were butterflying all over the place.
That's true.
Or
That is a good way.
or whatever the way is.
Right. That is a good way to use it. Otherwise, this expansion has reactions that trigger off of unusual effects in terms of it's other than attack. So a lot of the other basic reactions are when someone attacks, you reveal the card and it does something. These ones trigger off of doing anything else but attacking.
Kind of like Hinterlands.
Yeah, Hinterlands has some of them. So like I said, it's not a completely new concept. It just, there's more of them here. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them.
I think Hinterlands was very specific on you buy this and get something, or you do this specific named card and get something. This is a little bit more of an open implementation of that similar mechanic.
Right, because some of these don't necessarily trigger off for when you buy something. It could be when an opponent buys something.
Right.
So those unusual reactions. There are also cards that cost differently. So they have an asterisk next to the cost. And so it's just to indicate that there's something unusual. Like the horses all have an asterisk to show that it's a non-supply card. So it's not something you can buy, but it has value in case there are other cards that require a value.
Yeah, like you trash this, and based on its value, do this.
Right.
It has that value. That's the only reason why it has a value.
There are also a couple of cards where the cost of the card changes depending on the situation. So the asterisk is just there to remind you that something is unusual about it and to take a closer look before you buy type of thing.
Yeah, because nature is unpredictable. You never know when someone will steal your shoes.
What's with the shoes? I don't steal shoes.
I don't know. Just saying.
Well, okay, let's move on.
Not from me, from animals.
Why do animals have shoes?
Well, they don't because you stole them. It makes sense.
Evidently, it makes sense in his story.
Yes.
All right, so who is this for? We feel it's more the intermediate advanced players because it mixes in a lot of unusual things. It's not necessarily complicated or complex, but it does have more thought put behind it.
Yes.
It's kind of that next step.
It has a lot of timing involved because there's the timing of when reactions happen. There's the timing of when to exile and when to pull them back. So you have a lot of management issues going on. Plus you have choice. You have choice in every single card with the way being out there. It's always an option.
Yep.
So all those combined, it steps it just a little bit past that entry level and smacks you right into the intermediate and advanced.
Exactly.
But without being as heavy as, say, something like Nocturne, Dark Ages, or what was the other one we said that was really, really heavy? Nocturne, Dark Ages, and...
I am blanking, unfortunately.
As am I.
Watch all the videos and we say what we say in those videos.
Yes. Yes, we do.
All right.
All right. Well, that will do it for us here at the Rolling With series. Remember to check out the other video that comes out where I perform the flavor text of Dominion Menagerie. And you can learn the lessons that animals teach us, like how to spit really far.
And apparently, steal shoes.
No, that's not a thing. That's only for Sarah. But if you have any questions like where she put all the shoes, you can contact us and ask those questions on any of the social media platforms at
Rolling With Two, that's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe.
And maybe I'll convince Sarah to give back the shoes.
Maybe.
Until then, we've been Rolling with Dominion.